Alrighty, I'm gonna hit the record button and we can get started. Welcome everybody. It is Thursday, June 5th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. for our Pacific viewers, a little bit early out there. And I am joined with the founder of Alternative Payments, Baxter. Welcome. Thank you again for doing this. I know you're a busy man. Thank you for taking the time today to talk with me.
No, thanks for having me, Casey. This is awesome, and always love what you guys are doing in this space. So couldn't be happier to be on.
Glad to have you. Yeah, so today for our viewers, we're talking macro trends shaping the MSP industry. I just so happen to be involved and right here with somebody who has over $10 billion of financial data that he sees through his portal on the MSP side. And I'd like to go into those trends. Plus, I know, Baxter, you're very well connected in the space. You're talking with all the other partners across the board, whether it's providers, specialists, other founders, other SaaS companies. We're talking trends today. And first and foremost, I just want to ask Baxter, what's one of the biggest trends? What's like the thing that's in your mind that you've seen over the last few weeks or months where it's just a recurring theme that you're seeing in the space?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest trend that we're seeing and supported by data, which I think is the most important piece, right? I think a lot of us who are connected with different people in the market and go to conferences and have tons. Oh, there we go. I think I'm back. So you have all these conversations, and a lot of the conversations are great because, right, they're providing you intel. How's this company doing? How's that company doing? But it's hard to kind of paint the picture of, well, what's happening then in the broader market. And I think what's different about what we do and where we sit and how we add value is, not only are we speaking to our customers and we're speaking to potential partners and we're speaking to other software companies and we're speaking to accounting firms, we also have this really, really large invoice data set, right?
Yes.
And we really want to utilize that data set to really provide the insights back to our customers, right? And provide the value back to our customers so that they can then make better decisions. And so, about 9 months ago, we launched a product called Insights. Insights is really just a representation, a visualization of all the data that you have on your own company and how quickly are you getting paid and how quickly are you getting paid through alternative payments versus outside of alternative payments. Now, the big thing that alternative payments does is we automate that payment flow. So we have a credit card from your client. As soon as the invoice gets synced, it gets charged. And what does that mean? That means that it gets charged typically on the due date. So that basically is a payment in net 15 days if the invoice is due in 15 days. So 15 days, day sales outstanding. But the other key piece of this is what the payments that are coming in outside of alternative payments. So the majority of alternative payments is data and payments are really going to be those automated payments. It's about 65% of our payment volume. But then what's outside of the system is checks and ACH transactions and wires around alternative payments. But because of how we're structured and how we're set up, we still see a lot of that data. And really what we've seen, to kind of answer your question specifically, Casey, is we've seen, about a 20% increase in day sales outstanding of those payments over the last 3 to 6 months.
Wow.
And so what does that mean? That just means that end clients of MSPs are slowing down their payments to MSPs. And the reason why that's important, right, is because if they're slowing down payments, then they're slowing down cash flow to the MSP, and the MSP can't then invest in whatever they may want to invest in. And that's, I think, again, we'll see how it plays out over the next month and 2 months and 3 months. But that's a kind of a little bit of a red flag to try to figure out, why are they paying slowly? Is it broader macro trends to kind of bring this full circle? Is it indicative of just a challenge within the restaurant market? And so actually restaurant companies are the ones who are really slow playing. But what's really driving that? And my perception is really it's just macro uncertainty. It's not like there's been macro real big headwinds outside of tariffs, but our customer base is only US based. It's really about just uncertainty.
Yeah, I think we see that this customer sentiment of uncertainty, and especially we talked last week about the one big beautiful bill on Stride Live around the tax side too. A lot of changes being proposed, a lot of opportunities where it's, do I make a decision A now, or do I hold off and make decision B or A later? And I think it's interesting when you see that day sales outstanding. I want to dive in a little bit. Do you think that's because outside of, is it cash flow on the client base of the MSP side that their clients are more cash tight? Do you think it's more of a companies are investing in projects, so maybe it's more like, what does the data tell you? Have you had a chance really to dive in to see any additional trends in that?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't dived in as deep as we probably should be diving in, because it's just, again, it's not a muscle that we've built at the company, and every business owner appreciates that, you know, you need to build these
Absolutely.
muscles to really understand it. But the perception that I see is not that they're, again, we deal with US based MSPs, right? And
Yes.
so US based MSPs are also mostly selling into US based SMBs or mid market companies.
Mhm,
We don't do
mhm.
any cross border work. So, you know, generally, I think it's not that the US based MS or SMB is hurting necessarily. I mean,
Oh,
inflation may be a driver a little bit, but I think it's more about people are tightening their pockets and tightening their wallets and tightening their controls and just electing to slow play the market because they can control it. And so what
yeah.
we really try to advise, right, is not leave, don't leave that up for your client to decide. Try to
Yes.
put people on auto pay, try to get payment methods on file, so you're not following up with Joe and saying, "Hey Joe, I didn't receive your payment this month. It's now 15 days due." That adds manual work, and that also decreases your cash flow.
Yeah, yeah, I think we've shared the same sentiment. The MSPs that I've talked to this year and the conversation I've had, there's been a lot of that. Where can I optimize my costs? And this is the MSP side. Where are there places and opportunities where I don't necessarily need this level of investment or this investment at all? They're taking a deeper look. And I think the one thing we need to educate the MSPs on is, if you're doing that, your clients are too. So I think it's huge. I mean, we are huge advocates of, just from the accounting side, but then also the financial sense of, why is it convenient to have on auto pay? Why is it to get your establish a payment method on file with your clients? Well, one, accounting side, it makes it more simple from dealing through that process. And then secondarily, on the finance side, you hit the nail on the head, cash flow. If you're not worried about, hey, I'm starting services for July. I bill those on July 5th. It gets paid, and then we get the rest of the payments halfway through. If you just know that money's coming in, you have more certainty that if there is a moment of change or some sort of volatility in your business, you can handle this a lot easier. What are some of the other trends? What are anything else that you've seen in that data, or anything you're seeing
Yeah.
across the board at
Well,
length?
I think the other bigger trend, and I think this is actually the more important trend, is we're seeing sales cycles slow on the net new customer side. So,
Mhm.
MSPs, right? If you like, let's take a huge step back and like look at the broader market. There are 33 million SMBs in the US, and there are about 50,000 MSPs in the US, or sorry, MSPs. I'm always confusing, or maybe it's I'm dyslexic or something, SMB, MSP, or
Hey, no worries.
50,000 MSPs in the US, depending on who you ask. Some people think it's 60, some people think it's 40. Let's take the
Yeah.
average 50. Um, and there are obviously a lot of those SMBs and a lot of those mid-markets companies already utilizing MSP services. And then there's
Yeah.
all this white space. And within that white space, I think what we're really seeing is people are not opting in to use MSP services as frequently or as aggressively as they were when there was more certainty around the market and there was more
Yeah.
success, right?
Yeah.
So there was this big push post COVID around people remote work from home. Everybody needs to invest in their technological ecosystem, cybersecurity. That obviously generated a ton of revenue growth for MSPs, which
It
was
did.
amazing, right? 2020, 2021, 2022. And then, 2023 was an okay year. And then in 2024, you've started to see this regime change.
Yep.
tariffs,
Yep.
inflation pressure, macro headwinds, and that's slowing down sales cycles of net new SMBs who are
Yes.
looking for these technological services.
Uh,
And the challenge, right, is how do you grow, right? If you can't acquire net new customers at the same level that you used to be able to, you need to really grow by cross-selling and upselling. And so
Absolutely.
what
Yeah.
can you cross-sell and upsell to, maintain that growth? If your growth rate was 10%, 15% a year, and it was all organic, then how do you upsell, cross-sell to hit that same number, or do you not? Or do you look at M&A and other opportunities and channels?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot that I have on that with the trends because one, absolutely, we've seen that slowing in the sales cycle. I talked with Greg Northrup a couple weeks ago on IT valuations. I've talked with people in the M&A space. One of the biggest drivers of improving your valuation of your MSP, those looking to sell or acquire others, is that sales cycle. Do you have a sales process? Are you adding new customers? Because it's not just enough. It sounds crazy, but it's not just enough to have a great base of revenue, good profitability, and great margins. You also have to demonstrate that the business owner isn't the main operator of the business, isn't the main salesperson, and all growth goes to them, and that you have a process in place. You're generating leads, you're generating content, you're building and can bring somebody through a sales cycle, and you have productized your service-based business. That's a huge driver. And I think that's one trend that we're seeing is that's slowing down a little bit, and it's forcing business owners to say, do I make the investment in growth? Do I make the investment in a new service line? I've seen a lot of MSPs are starting to do really pursuing backup heavily as a revenue line and really the cloud-based infrastructure. And those that do it well are great. If you're getting into the cloud computing as an MSP, you're going to see higher margins and you're going to see an accelerated growth rate, but it is a sales cycle that takes time to build. You have to build the value props, you have to have the experience. So I think you made a really good point is how are you differentiating with your existing customer base to upsell and cross sell, and also making sure that they're not evaluating and saying, I'm going to get three more proposals from my other MSP because my MSP does the exact same thing as these other ones I'm looking at and might be less, but it's that differentiating factor. Are you adding cyber as a service? Are you doing VC? So are you doing more of being an embedded partner? Or are you truly just seen as another line item for your customers and they don't understand that value? And I think taking the opportunity where, okay, if you're not fielding as many sales opportunities coming in a full pipeline, really tapping in with your existing customer base because yeah, it sucks not to bring on new logos, but churn hurts a lot more than not bringing on new revenue is losing that existing base and also not staying on top of your agreements. I think that's a big one where if you're not maintaining new agreements, upping your prices, checking in on your quarterly or your monthly business reviews, and really using those as opportunities to see what challenges your clients are facing and not just let me position some sales in here, let me position some new revenue, you're going to be in a lot more of a situation where you're not worried about, hey, there's volatility, there's things changing the market. You're going to say, okay, yes, there's change happening, but we know this is a consistent piece for us. We've tapped in, we know our clients, and we have at-risk profiles and such. So I really think you hit it there. And I think you guys do a great job. I mean, we talked with your sales team a few weeks ago, but you guys do a great job of building a sales process. For the MSPs that are struggling, what are some of the things that you've had success with alternative payments and building a good sales culture and a good sales team?
Yeah. So a couple things. I mean, I think the sales culture and the sales team is super important. Now, the challenge with this question is it's all directly correlated to size of business, right? I mean, you can't
Absolutely.
you can't try to overcomplicate it or, restructure some process that just doesn't work for your business. And I think what everybody would tell you is, if you're small and you're the one who's leading sales and net new customer acquisition, net new logo growth, referrals are certainly the only business to play, right? Like you
Yeah.
cannot
Yeah.
be cold calling, cold emailing people. Like it's not sustainable. It's also just not effective. So you're not going to have, I think, a lot of value to do
Hmm.
so.
Hmm.
I think the key question then becomes really what is your product offering, right? Where do you differentiate?
Yes. Yes.
differentiate within specific markets? Is it restaurants? Is it HVAC? Is it churches? Where
Mhm.
is your differentiation and where is your focus? And once you can pin down that ICP of your
Yeah.
customer base, then you need to think about, well, then what's the channel that I can reach them through, right?
Hmm.
Is it, I don't think content's a good idea for some of these smaller shops, but is it content? Is it paid search and paid ads? Is it sales structure? And always I think about really starting small, right? So you don't need to go after, the challenging thing with go to market and with sales is like there are like 100 different channels you could utilize.
Yeah.
And so you don't need to go after all of them. You just need to have a hunch on which one may work the best or which
Hmm.
three may work the best. And then how do you spend a little bit of capital and a little bit of time pursuing those, right? And so if it's paid search, can you find an agency that's pretty small to run some campaigns, to test some things out? And if it's not working after a month or two, like the agency will probably tell you to double down, double down, and double down. And I would just scrap it. Like if it's not working quickly, like scrap it.
Yeah.
Direct sales, I think, is highly effective, but the challenge is someone needs to manage the headcount and manage just the people, right? So if you have BDRs or account executives, you need to figure out what your sales cycle looks like and what that sales process looks like. But if you can provide lead lists of those restaurants that you sell into in a specific geography and let someone try to bring in leads, I think that could be a hugely beneficial strategy. But the a lot of people, I think, especially on the technical side, think that like sales is some foreign kind of concept, and it is to some degree, but
It can be.
it
Absolutely.
can be. But you need the same technical acumen and processes that you push forward every day for your business from an IT
Yeah.
perspective. You need to apply those to a sales perspective. And you
Absolutely.
can't manage what you can't monitor and what you can't see. And so, how do you build the best technical dashboarding and management, or not the best, right, but good enough to allow you to see success? And then, once you see success, in my perspective, you jump on it. Like
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
you start acquiring some customers here or there. Now you 2x it, you 3x it, you 4x it. Don't worry about all this other, shiny objects. Just do what's
Yes.
really working.
Yeah, yeah. I sit in this role as a director of business development, just empathizing with all of that because I've gone through that. I've productized the service business. I've done it as an MSP too prior to Stride. I've done that. I've taken this complicated thing of wow, every client we face as an MSP thinks they need some custom offering and understand what it takes to make that into a three-tiered offering, to position your services based on value and not time and dollars around what you're doing, but the value you're providing. And I think you really hit it where it's like you hear these MSPs, and I think there's that balancing act of you have to invest, but it's like you said, if it's not working immediately, it might make sense to double down or to refine that strategy. But if you feel it's wrong in your gut and you're like, I just don't think this is where my client base or my potential customer base lives, scrap it. Don't invest thousands of dollars in SEO for 5, 6 months if it doesn't turn anything, or if you don't believe that's where it's being found. Talk to the other MSPs, see where it's found, talk to your existing client base too. You'd be surprised what you're going to learn about the environment and what your potential clients are saying because you're learning from your existing client base. Whether it's healthcare, whether it's like you said, nonprofit. When I was at the MSP, we did this. We talked to our nonprofits. That's how we found out that they're like, we have all this free technology, we get all these free computers, but nobody tells us we don't know how to use it and it sits in a closet. And then we were able to acquire and start working with a dozen and a half, 18 to 20 new nonprofits in 6 months because we said, that's a space that works. They're not looking for us on Google. They're not looking at content on social media. But if we give donuts and coffee and set up a little event and say, here's how you can use your free education, they will show up at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning before they go to work. They will. And I think if you find what works is really investing into that because having a sales process, as you said, it can be complicated, but it doesn't have to be. You need three key processes and stages. How do you get leads in the door? what do you do once they're there, and how do you take lead to client? And those are the three basic processes in your sales cycle that you need to nail. And you can complicate it with bells and whistles and shiny objects, or you can say, what are the tried methods? What makes sense for me? And what can be replicated in the future, but it doesn't have to be done by me? Because that's the biggest differentiator. If it's just you and it's the secret sauce that just Baxter knows, and Baxter knows how to get these clients and bring across the board, what are the pieces that you can take from that into your methodology that you can eventually augment a part of that? I have a sales assistant at Stride, and he supports a lot of the concept and the things we do, but I'm still controlling the strategy. But I don't have to do all those other little functions if somebody else, if I can build a system around it. And that's what allows us to have more results and more success. And it allows me to feel like I'm everywhere. And I think MSPs struggle with that. And I think one of the other components is around their offering. You hit it too. What do your clients really want? You don't want to try to service everybody. Being, oh, we have 24/7 service in the Cleveland, Ohio and 2 hour radius, not enough. Oh, I work with healthcare companies, not enough. Oh, I work with, you need to understand that no, nobody in this Philadelphia metro area understands manufacturers of 1 million to 10 million and the problems they face more than me. And here's the tools that I use to support them that they also use in their business. That's a differentiator when your potential client sees MSP A, B, and C. 300 a seat, 250 a seat, 275. Why are they going to choose you? That's going to put them over the hump. That's going to give them the trust to say, you understand my business and I want to work with you. It's the same reason why we work on ConnectWise. We're an accounting firm, but we use ConnectWise and we use Bill.com. We use alternative payments. We know the tools that they're using and how to support them because that's what's being asked of the demand of our clients. And it allows us to be more of a value differentiator. I do want to talk technology a little bit because we're seeing some interesting trends, especially around PSAs. I know you guys support a lot of ConnectWise and Halo and some auto task shops. What we've seen over the last 6 months is there's been a trend of companies that went to Halo early on that are now looking and going either back to ConnectWise or positioning to auto task because of some of the functions around sales cycle, but then also just it seems like there's not a one-stop shop answer anymore when it comes to PSAs in the industry. What are you seeing around that? Because I know all your clients pretty much use a PSA. So what are the trends that you're seeing in terms of adoption
Yeah,
rates?
it's interesting. I don't have the numbers off the top of my fingers. I wish you sent me a message beforehand and I would have pulled them
Yeah,
up.
no
The
worries. Next time.
the thing that I think we're seeing, which again, this is not supported by the data, so kind of take it with a grain of salt, but is people migrated to Halo quite quickly and are continuing to migrate to Halo quite quickly, but it's not as easy plug and play and out of the box as people thought it was.
Yes.
And so, ConnectWise and Autotask are out of the box, easy to use solutions. They don't cost a ton from an implementation perspective. And sure, there are pros and cons, right? There are pros and cons with every single software out there. There's pros and cons
Yeah.
with every single service provider out there. And so I think, as an owner, an operator, and decision maker, need to kind of weigh those pros and cons as
Yeah.
to whether how it relates to your business and whether it's the best solution that it can be. I think generally what we've seen is this big push over to Halo.
Yeah.
But then Halo's not set up, and there's a concern around paying for more hours to get Halo set up to all of the capabilities that they want. And then
Yeah.
the challenge, I think, for a lot of these people is it becomes this optimization game, which takes a lot of time. Like, we as a business probably utilize like 30, 40, 50 tools. And I know MSPs
Yeah.
utilize like
Yeah.
45 tools. And what I'm always telling my team, they come to me and they're like, hey, we need Perplexity and we need ChatGPT. And
Yeah.
I'm like, WTF? Like, why do we need both? Now, if they have a good rationale, like I have
Yes.
no issue in terms of utilizing both. But then the challenge becomes integrations, right? So if we're utilizing ChatGPT and integrating it into these other software solutions, and then you now need to replace it or want to replace it with a solution like Perplexity, it causes
Yeah.
a tremendous amount of effort. And your PSA is your source of record, right? It's your source of
Yeah.
truth as a business. And so you should never think about replacing your PSA just on a whim. Um,
No, no.
and that's I think that's, again, some of the things that we've seen. We haven't seen migrations off of Halo, maybe,
Yeah.
which sounds like you've seen a little bit of,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we've also seen a lot of, super ops is developing, and there's another PSA called 𝐓𝐿𝐻. And so we've seen a lot of additional smaller PSAs continue to take market share that people really enjoy. They're faster, they're React front ends, and people are quite excited about.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny because I see both. I've seen, for instance, we work with a consultant that supports some of our Autotask clients. He's seen a pretty big trend of originally he was just a Halo or a ConnectWise and Autotask guy. He got into Halo because he saw the migrations off Autotask. But what he's seeing now is a lot of that client base that left for Halo 3 or 4 years ago are now going back to Autotask because, as you said, they went a little early. They didn't understand all of the parameters around ranging and what integrations and customizations they had. Because I don't see it so much where client goes from ConnectWise and goes to Halo, goes back to ConnectWise. What I'm seeing is hey, went from Autotask to Halo and then back to Autotask. And it really is just on that side of the aisle. A lot of this is tied to that Kaseya allegiance, their Datto, they're that side, they're working within that infrastructure. Makes sense. But it comes down to it's the MSPs that we see where they're more of the, let's call them the engineering and in-house development. They want the custom ability. They like how Autotask deals with the tickets. They hate the new UI. I mean, the user interface that Autotask just updated to has nothing but bad reviews from what I've heard, but they like all the bones behind it. And they said, we moved to Halo. It didn't have the integrations and the custom ability that we liked that we had before. And it's the same thing on the ConnectWise side. We've talked with a couple that they're on ConnectWise. They want to move to Halo. They were sold on it. And then they realized there are a lot of other integrations and pieces to the machine that go into ConnectWise where if we move that, it's going to have a huge effect downstream. And in a time where they didn't want to be, typically it's we don't want to put that burden on our customers. We don't want to change for our technicians. And we said, hey, let's invest in the process. Because what we're seeing is we had conversations with MSPs that were like, okay, we're moving to Halo. But what we see is okay, now 6 months later, they're like, we didn't move. We want to invest in some ConnectWise advisory and optimization. And we've had a lot of that work lately. Larry's been busy with GL mappings, building the revenue cycle, building the time tracking, the ticketing. And I think it's that it doesn't really matter. And I say this all the time, it doesn't matter which one you pick in the grand scheme of things. It matters about how you set it up and how you use it. And then do your technicians use it? It's the same thing you see on the sales side. If your team doesn't use the pipe drive, it doesn't use Salesforce, it doesn't use the lead generation and the lead tracking tools, it's not going to be a good system. But if they follow the processes, it's going to make that work. So I was just curious to what you see because I know you have most of your bases on ConnectWise, and then you have a big chunk of Halo. Just if you're seeing any of that migrating, I think another one that we're seeing is the desire by MSPs to have more of a handle on their billing cycles and their billing systems, meaning they want to know what their licenses are. They want to get things paid ahead of time. They want to be able, for instance, with alternative payments, we've seen is taking deposits, adding financing on their projects because there are a lot of clients and companies now that are like, we don't want to pay for this project all at once. We want to be able to space it out. And I think that's been a huge tool for us is that you guys do that natively just directly through the platform. That's huge. I don't know if you're seeing that. How many people really use that feature? Because our clients, we see quite a few that are using that in alternative payments right now.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think this is the part of DSOs that we need to like return to the conversation of.
Yeah.
I think people are seeing some customers start to slow play them. And the thing that I love about what we do in the market, especially in this kind of macro environment, is it's not a big investment, right? Like you're paying already for payment processing, and now instead of paying vendor A, you're paying alternative payments. But with alternative payments, you're getting the automation workflow, you're
Yes.
streamlining a lot of the processes, and you're getting paid faster, which is really, really important in this time because you don't want to have situations in which your end clients are, oh, sorry, Casey, I didn't see the invoice. Oh, sorry, Casey, can you send me the invoice again? Oh,
Checks
sorry,
in the mail. Yeah.
check in the mail. Oh, I'll send you a wire next week. Like you need to prevent against all of that. to make
Yeah.
sure that this is really streamlined. And if you don't have something today, it's a very, very easy lever to pull to improve these practice at your business. And so I think we're seeing a lot of that trend in the market of investing in this kind of billing and payment solution. I think you're also seeing a lot of discontent customers move off of, maybe they're using their bank account for just ACH transactions, or they're using QuickBooks payments, or they're using Stripe. And they're realizing that a lot of these companies don't have the sophistication of a solution like alternative payments. And they're also realizing that the premium of these solutions is not a huge premium. So
Yeah.
it's really just
Yeah.
replacing the cost at the end of the day. And typically, actually, it's saving them money from a credit card processing perspective and some of the ACH processing perspectives.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, it's low hanging fruit is the way I think about it. And the other fun fact that we've learned, which again is I think directionally right. If there are about 50,000 MSPs in the market, going back to macro trends, there are only about 5,000 MSPs that are utilizing a MSP-focused payment solution, which integrates into PSA.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That means that 90% of the MSPs out there are utilizing something else. They may be utilizing QuickBooks payments. They may be utilizing Stripe. They may be utilizing checks. They may be utilizing all these other things. And so, part of it's this education process of, QuickBooks payments gets the job done. I'm not going to knock
expensive.
it.
It's expensive.
Well, it's expensive, but it's a solid platform. It gets the job done. It's expensive, but there are additional benefits, additional product features that can really streamline the process for you.
And I think that's really the trend as you look at, there's more and more tools. There's an AI tool every day. It's what are the relevant tools to my space, and do they really understand it? Alternative payments, we support and we work with you guys a lot, but there's a reason why we do that. You guys understand the industry. This isn't a, hey, we have a company and we built this software tool and we're going to slap MSPs and we're going to start selling to them. No, you guys did the time and investment and understand. For instance, you talked about how alternative payments integrates with ConnectWise and QBO. And the beauty of it is the accounting side. When you do, for instance, that financing and deferring revenue, it automatically does that. It tracks. We see that as accountants in QBO, and it's like it reduces the work we do so we can be more focused on being advisory and being more supportive around helping our clients make better decisions and have better insights. And I think the biggest tool is that we're really excited is you guys with your own AP platform that you guys are building really to help the payments and the billing side. Because, we use a mesh between Ramp and Bill.com, and there's some other tools we use. And we're really big fans of Ramp, but Ramp doesn't make sense for everybody. We like Bill.com, but Bill.com also struggles in there. So it's interesting to see, because I think this space, there's no one really doing that on the AP side, very specific to their industry. And people think, you're not really having that many bills and payments, but it's like, if you can nail everything else around AP the same way you have around AR, those are two of the massive accounting functions, and it just streamlines that on our end and on the MSPs that you said. If 90% aren't using a tool and there's a tool that they can use that the business owner, because we don't want to just talk about the multi-million-dollar MSPs. I mean, the $500,000, the $600,000 a year for the owners who are doing everything every hour can be going towards growing or shrinking your business. If it automates that and you can use it yourself, that's going to level up and support your maturity instead of just using, we do checks or we do what the traditional is. And I think really that education is the biggest burden is you can do this. We get it. We set up an MSP a couple months ago where we said, hey, you're just going to charge your clients automatically. Like, we can do that. It's like, yes, yeah, you can do that. You can automatically bill for your services that are recurring the same way that you pay for Netflix or anything else. You can do that on the B2B side.
Yeah, and it's to your point on just the market, like they're just, for whatever reason, I don't quite understand it, but fintech innovation has not really come to this market, right?
No.
Like it's been very much about payment processing, which is like the first inning of fintech automation. And what gets me most excited is the inning number 2 through 9 as we continue to grow and as we continue to add these different products and feature set, which allow an MSP to automate this component of their business that they really don't want to deal with, right?
Yeah.
And so we can help support you with all of these different workflows and automation pieces to really streamline that process. And it's an exciting time in the industry because there are, a lot of people they have their PSA workflow, they have their, product set that they're selling. Obviously there are little tweaks that they're improving. But if we look at their entire business around sales and go to market and customer success and support and onboarding and
Yeah.
technical product capabilities, this kind of finance bucket, fits really nicely in with what Stride's obviously been accomplished and done. Fits really, really nicely in terms of where we have built and where we have focused and where we continue to build, again, to provide best in class tooling for this part of their business.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we're kind of close to time here. Always a great conversation. I know we'll be having more. We're both going to be at PAX8 Beyond next week. So if anyone watching, if you're there, come say hello. I believe booth number, I want to look it up so I get it correct. I know we do have the booth number here. But Baxter, what I typically like to do at the end is, hey, too long, didn't watch. What's the 1 minute piece of advice that an MSP owner can take today to improve their business or something of value that you can give them today?
Yeah, I mean, I think, listen, like, I think it's really around this payment automation piece, right? Which is,
Yeah.
it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. I will guarantee that the transition will be really, really streamlined. If you've been burnt historically or upset historically
Yeah.
about different processes, we will help you. Call me, like text me, email me. I am happy to be involved. I am happy to help you, guide you. I am happy to work with you. And that's the type of service that we provide as a business. We're now over 50 people, and
Awesome.
support, a lot of MSPs. So excited to potentially support you.
Yeah, that's exciting. And I know you guys launched your MSP Financial Academy. We're a part of that. We're excited to be a part of that to just help the decision making and education in the space. And yeah, for next week, PAX8 Beyond, Alternative Payments, booth 827. You're looking at the map, back right corner. Come check us out. Stride will be hanging out with the team all week. So we appreciate you, Baxter. Thank you very much again for taking the time to jump on today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Casey. We'll see you this weekend.
Thank you.
See ya.